The Denver Broncos just absolutely curb stomped the Cincinnati Bengals 28-3 in a gotta have it must win on Monday night. Broncos could not afford to go to 1-3. Really should have came in 3-0, should be 4-0 right now, but they take care of business at home against a bad Bengals team. That is a JV level of competition comparatively to the NFL landscape. But guess what? The Broncos did exactly what you would hope they would do against an opponent of that caliber. You look at some of the numbers coming out of this game, all right? 512 yards of offense. Holy freaking moly. 29-9 in first downs. 29-9. All right, that is plus 20 in first downs. The Broncos have already been on the receiving end of that type of stat this season. It is so refreshing to see plus 20. That should be impossible in first downs. And also 80 plays ran to 43 for the Bengals. 80 to 43. You're almost doubling up the Bengals in plays. 80 plays is just an insane number of plays, but it was that type of dominant performance. Like the field was tilted. Outside of a couple of head-scratching moments, the Broncos really did whatever the Broncos wanted to do. Now, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect, all right? A turnover, some undisciplined penalties, right? Some questionable play calling in the lower red area. But when you win 28-3 and you put up over 500 yards of offense, there's only so much you can spend time complaining about the actual night of the game as we're sitting here doing an instant reaction video. Guys, if you're watching this on Twitter or X, appreciate you being here. I humbly ask you, go follow Buysline on YouTube as I am creating original videos like this every single day. All right, let's talk about Bo Nix. 326 yards. Bo needed a game like this one. Just to reiterate, it wasn't perfect, okay? But these are huge numbers, and they could have been bigger. I thought some of his receivers let him down throughout this game, all right? Couple drops that could have made these numbers even more gaudy, but he's not in need of that when you go for 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, did have the turnover. I didn't like it, but also a rushing touchdown as well. Probably could have had a separate rushing touchdown on that turnover, but again, it's all good. You absolutely rolled your opponent. This was a bad Bengals team that somehow accumulated more penalties than actual first downs. So they are in a bad way, but what's their problems isn't the Denver Bronco problems. So we will just leave that where it lies. But it finally happened. It finally happened for the first time in years. The Denver Broncos had a 100-yard rusher. I feel like Andrew Dufresne in Shawshank crawling out of the sewage, all those long pipes escaping the prison, and just putting my hands towards the heavens as the rain falls down on me. We had not had a 100-yard rusher in Denver, Colorado since January 8th, 2023, when Latavius Murray did it. All right, so just 8 days into the calendar year 2023, but it's the 2022 season. So obviously it didn't happen so far this year, didn't happen last year, didn't happen the year before that. Finally, the curse has been lifted. I don't know if there was a blood sacrifice at some point, maybe, and justifiably so. I mean, that was almost 40 consecutive games without a 100-yard rusher. And J.K. Dobbins is the one who gets there on 101 yards rushing. And you know what the kicker was? He didn't have one run longer than 16 yards. So this isn't like he had like a 66-yard run and then made up the difference. No, he got there the hard way. I was so impressed with J.K. Dobbins tonight and just his relentless nature of running that football with grit. I mean, blue-collar style running from J.K. Dobbins. He's been so impressive so far this year. He's well on pace to go over 1,000 yards, and Denver hasn't had one of those since 2019, when my co-host on the radio, Philip Lindsay, did it. All right, and I hate to give myself a little pat on my back. I don't hate it that much, but I predicted today on the radio that this was going to happen tonight. I've not given one of these predictions since the last 100-yard rusher, and I said tonight it would be the night, and it was going to be J.K. Dobbins. Feel extremely validated and pretty good about myself after that, but you just love to see it because you're finally seeing some semblance of a bell cow back. here in Denver for the first time in a long time. RJ Harvey behind him played well in addition to J.K. Dobbins. So you just love to see that two-headed monster approach there between Dobbins and the second-round pick, Harvey. Elsewhere, but by the way, 6.3 yards per carry for Dobbins, super healthy. Cortland Sutton, old hickory, old reliable, 81 yards, a touchdown. I thought he was fantastic. How about the yak yards for Cortland Sutton? Bumbling and stumbling and rumbling. Not used to seeing those yards after catch from Sutton. That's not really who he is. But, man, talk about taking advantage of those opportunities. Without those yards after the catch, he probably would have been around 60 yards or so, whatever it would have been. But now he's into the 80s. Really healthy number to build off of moving forward, and hopefully his confidence as well. And love seeing him connect with Bo. Absolute laser from Bo Nix right on the goal line to Cortland Sutton. And that's one other thing I'll say about Bo is one of the things that I really liked about Bo tonight, it looked like the thinking was going down. It was more just playing free, all right? When you don't think, and you guys know this, when you're not thinking, you can play fast, all right? And you saw a version of Bo Nix that was just letting that thing rip, hucking that thing around the same way that he's done since he was 7-8 years old. And I like that version of Bo. I'll reiterate, wasn't perfect. All right, throughout the week, we'll talk about some of these corrections that Bo can make, but you absolutely love to see it with the world watching on Monday Night Football. And how about this defense? Cincinnati goes and scores 3 points on the opening drive, and there was some missed tackles, penalties, and it's like, man, what are we in store for? But beyond that point, they got their valve completely shut off. It felt like I was watching Colorado State the other night, scoring 3 points on the first drive and then zeros after that. That was the Bengals trying to battle uphill against this stout Denver Broncos defense. Guys, at one point in the game, the Bengals had punted 8 consecutive times. This defense became a boa constrictor on Jake Browning and this really piss-poor Cincinnati offense. We talked about it in these videos leading up to this game. Can't run the football. Browning had 4 wins. They all came against backup quarterbacks like Jeff Driscoll, Gardner Minshew, C.J. Beathard, Nick Mullins. And, it wasn't going to happen tonight in Denver, not against this defense. Benito gets a sack and a half. Nick Benito is having a fantastic season, 4.5 sacks in the first 4 games. This guy is going to be squarely in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation tomorrow morning. I can promise you his odds have improved insanely rapidly. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the week. John Franklin Myers, good to see him get to the quarterback in back-to-back weeks, just throwing that rookie guard right out of the club on his way to getting to Jake Browning. Again, there's stuff to clean up. All right, there's definitely stuff to clean up. At some points in the game, the offense was frustrating. The penalties could be frustrating. Luke Wattenberg had a day that Garrett Bowles in 2017 would be proud of. I mean, it was hard to watch at points, but you'd rather clean this crap up in a 28-3 victory. The penalties, the turnover, some of the play calling in the red zone, some of the drops from these pass catchers. So a lot to improve on, but the Broncos, thankfully, can let out a sigh of relief, get back to 500 at 2-2 with the rest of the slate in front of them. One of the more dominant performances just across the board that you'll see in the NFL this year. Guys, again, if you're watching this on Twitter or X, go follow Buysline at YouTube. If you are watching this at YouTube, please, I humbly ask you to subscribe. Man, like this puppy. Drop me your thoughts in the comments, regardless of what social platform you're watching this on. Would love to interact with you there. That'll do it for me in the instant reaction video. You'll hear more from me tomorrow.